Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishnah Shabbos, Perek Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 1. I dedicate this morning's learning in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shalamis Rabinowitz, Shalamis Bas Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer. Okay, so one of the 39 Avos Malachas, one of the 39 primary forbidden activities of Shabbos is called Mavir. It means making a fire bigger, making coals burn brighter. All that is making a fire or creating more fire. That all falls under the Malacha, the rabbinic activity of Mavir. And because of that concern, that somebody may do that on Shabbos, may say stir coals, to stir up the fire, to make something cook faster, that is a concern that the Chachamim had, and therefore we have the following Mishnayos. Now the Mishnah begins with Kira. Kira is a specific type of stove, and it's described as a rectangular stove upon which two pots can be placed with a fire burning beneath them. As we see, as we continue with the Mishnayos, there are different types of stoves, and each stove is going to may have a difference in how we deal with it. But right now, this Mishnah is dealing with what's called a Kira, where you have, again, it's a rectangular stove. Two pots can be placed on it with the fire below. Shesikua bakash ubegavava. You heated it with straw, or that's kasha straw, and ubegvava is wood chips. Naisnim aleha tapsho. You can put a pot on top of that kira, on top of that stove before Shabbos, and let it be as you go into Shabbos. However, ubegefes ubeetzim. If you heat the stove with gefes is, they call it pulp. Gefes is a residue of olives or sesame after their juice has been squeezed out. The residue can be used as a fuel. So if you heat this kira, this stove, with gefes, with the pulp, ube'etzim, or with wood, lo yitain, then you may not put the pot on this stove before Shabbos to go into Shabbos, ad sheyigrayf or yad sheyitin asa'efer, until you shovel out the coals or you put dirt on top of it. Now what's happening is like this. Actually, afer, the definition of afer is ash. You put ash on top of it. So what's happening is like this. The concern is that you're gonna put a pot of food. You can't put a pot of food on the stove on Shabbos on the fire. That's cooking. So what do you want to do? You want to put it on before Shabbos and let it go into Shabbos. So Friday night, you can have a nice hot cooked meal, nice hot cooked food. The problem is that you may decide, you maybe get a little nervous, and you may be concerned, well, maybe by the time I eat my meal Friday night, it's not going to be ready. So you're going to forget. Because of that concern, you're going to kind of get caught up in that concern and go and stoke the fire. Okay? Now, to stoke a fire, there's got to be some kind of, that they call it coal, meaning whatever you put in, right, doesn't just burn up and have the stove retain the heat. There's something there. There's a coal. There's something there that continues giving off heat. That's what we're concerned you're going to stoke. So we say like this. If you heated the stove with straw or with the wood chips, these little pieces of wood, then the point is they get burned up right away. They're gone. And still the stove retains heat, right? So therefore your food can continue cooking, but there's no concern by the time Shabbos comes that you're going to stoke something because it's burned up. So if you heat the stove with the straw or with the gabo, with the small wood chips, then you can just put your pot on the stove before Shabbos and then go into Shabbos, no concerns. But if you go ahead and you're heating the stove with this pulp or with these bigger pieces of wood, and they create coals or embers, whatever you want to say, they create something that continues giving off heat. That we're concerned you may come to stoke in order to get the fire to go bigger and things would cook faster. Therefore, we say if you're going to do that, you have to. If that's the fuel you were using, then you either have to shovel it out, meaning you have to before Shabbos take out whatever was in there that's heating, okay? You got to take it out so that there's really hardly anything left in there. Or you basically cool it down. You take this ash, right? And you spread it on top of the coals, and that cools things down. In both cases, clearly what you're by going ahead and by lowering the heat in the stove, that shows that you're not really thinking anymore about getting this thing to burn more, and therefore we're not going to have a concern. So therefore, that's the difference here in the Mishnah when the Mishnah talks about what am I heating it with, depending on what the fuel is. There's something that burns up right away, so I can put it on that stove before Shabbos. By the time Shabbos comes, I'm not going to be concerned. But if you're using the kind of fuel that makes coals, and therefore the problem is you're going to stoke it, then we say you cannot use that stove by putting a pot on. Even you put the pot on the stove before Shabbos into Shabbos, unless you either clean out whatever coal you have in there, or you put ash on it to cool it. Okay, now a couple of things here that need to be mentioned, and that is the following. This restriction applies only to food that either is not yet fully cooked or is fully cooked but would improve if it were cooked even more. In these cases, since cooking would improve the food, we are concerned that the person will stir the coals to make it cook faster. But if the food is fully cooked and would not be improved by further cooking, one may leave it even on a stove filled with pulp or large pieces of wood, because he will not think of stirring the coals. Although he wants the stove to remain hot so that his food stays warm, he does not need to stir the coals for that purpose, because the stove will remain warm enough on its own. A person would stir coals only if he wants to speed up the cooking process. Okay, so that's one condition. The case of the Mishnah that talks about that you're not going to be able to use the pulp or the wood, meaning where there's a coal left behind, to say that you cannot use that unless you do something to the coal, is only talking about something where further cooking it will improve it. Okay. Additionally, if the food has not yet begun to cook at all when Shabbos begins, one may leave it on the stove. Since it will take a long time to cook, the person puts it out of his mind and will not think of stirring the coals. You put a piece of raw food right before Shabbos. It's not going to be ready Friday night. So therefore, they're not thinking about it anymore. We're not afraid you're going to stoke it, because that's not going to be ready. Okay, now.
Why would you do that?
For Shabbos morning.
For Shabbos morning. Okay.
Seems that this, whatever heat was there, was kind of a slow cooking.
Yeah. Okay.
Next. Beis Shammai Oimrim. Beis Shammai say, Chamin avaloi tavshol. Beis Shammai go as far to say that even after you have, let's say, shoveled out the coal, right, or put ash on top, the only thing you can put on this kira to leave into Shabbos is hot water. Avaloi tavshol, but not when we're talking about a food. And basically, the explanation to that is, even after the coals have been shoveled away, some embers remain, and Beis Shammai are concerned that one might stir them. In the case of water heats up quickly, becoming as hot as required, even if one does not stir the embers. So basically, Beis Shammai is saying is like this. Even if you clean it out or you cover it with the ash, there's still going to be some parts that stay hot. There's still going to be some coals left. There's going to be some coals that were covered by the ash, which means potentially they could be stirred to get a fire, to get some more heat going. So when we're talking about food, Beis Shammai say, we have to be concerned about that. You have to be concerned that even if you shoveled it out, covered it over with the ash, if there's still some stuff there, there's always going to be something that you could still stir. For food where it really benefits it, we have to be concerned. So even after you shoveled it out or covered it, you cannot leave food on before Shabbos into Shabbos. Water you could. Water that gets cooked quickly and sufficiently, and stirring that isn't really necessary. So if you didn't take anything out, like it's like full, the coals are still there, then even by water, Beis Shammai says, you've got that stuff to stir. And it can really make a fire. Even for water, you wouldn't be able to leave it on there before Shabbos. But if you did shovel it out or you did cover it and it's only water, then Beis Shammai say it's okay to leave it on for before Shabbos into Shabbos. Beis Hillel say, Chamin v'tavshol. Nope, both hot water, both food is going to work if you shovel it out or cover it before Shabbos, to leave it on before Shabbos into Shabbos. Next, Beis Shammai say, Noitlin avaloi machzirin. According to Beis Shammai, if let's say Beis Shammai says we can only leave hot water on before Shabbos if you shovel it out or you cover it with the ash. Okay, so Beis Shammai say like this. So fine, that's what you did. It's hot water. You shoveled it out, or you cover it with ash. You put it on before Shabbos. You leave it into Shabbos. No problem. But now I want to put it back. I mean, I took it off to use, but now I want to put it back. Can I put it back? So Beis Shammai say no, because putting back looks like you're cooking. That's what it looks like. That's what it appears like. Beis Hillel say, ach machzirin. According to Beis Hillel, whatever it is that putting ash on or shoveling out works for, which according to Beis Hillel is both water and food, and therefore you're allowed to leave it on before Shabbos going into Shabbos, and now you took it off, you want to put it back, you may, but only on certain conditions. And one of those conditions are that you cannot have put it down. Meaning if you took the pot off and you put it down on the table, so then Beis Hillel say if it's gone that far already, then you can't put it back on because that looks like cooking. Mm-hmm. But if you basically never put it down or never let go of it, so then basically you haven't finished what you did before, then Beis Hillel say you could put it back on. Beis Shammai say even then you can't put it back on. Beis Hillel say you could. Have a wonderful day.
As long as you don't put it down.